All right, guys, it is Thursday, May 14th, and we are going to look at journal entry as your lesson today. On page 24, it is called Florida Keys by Daryl Otis. And let's take a look at the words they want you to watch out for here. As you read, look inside, around, and beyond these words to figure out what they mean. That's called using context clues. So we've got the word colonies, structure, and habitats. So let's look for those words as we read. All right, it's just, okay, it's 2 pages, 2 pages, okay. This first article is 2 pages. We're going to read 2 today. All right, the Florida Keys. 1. July 12th. So far, our summer vacation in Key Largo has been great. Okay, let me stop there for a minute. Remember, this is a journal entry. Someone is writing this in a journal. Okay? Daryl Otis. All right. So far, our summer vacation in Key Largo has been great. We went to Pennicamp Coral Reef State Park yesterday, took a tour on a glass-bottom boat, and saw some amazing coral reefs. Did you know that the Florida Keys have the only living coral barrier reef in North America? Our guide told us that the reef is made of coral polyps. These tiny sea animals have soft bodies and live in warm, shallow waters. All right, so right here, guys, it tells you that coral polyps are tiny sea creatures that have soft bodies and live in warm, shallow waters. Okay? They form large colonies and are connected to one another. So what do you think colonies means from that? Like large groups, and they're connected to one another. When coral polyps die, they leave behind a hard limestone skeleton. Over time, layers of skeletons build up to form a structure called a reef. A coral reef grows slowly upward from the ocean floor, and it may only grow 1 inch every year. On top of the reef, there are thousands of living coral polyps. Because coral polyps are animals, they need to eat food. At night, they reach out their tentacles or long feelers to catch food that floats by. All right, another example, tentacles, and then when it says or long feelers, that's giving you the definition of tentacles. And they use them to catch food that floats by. They also get their food from tiny algae that live inside them. The algae use the sun's energy to produce food. All right, this is called a caption. Remember, a caption is what's next to a picture. It tells about the picture. Check out this close-up photo of a coral polyp. It clearly shows the tentacles, the long feelers that they use to catch food. All right, and here's another caption. I took this photo while scuba diving in a kelp forest off the coast of California. The bass at the upper left looks pretty cozy. This is his natural habitat after all. Okay, so a habitat is where an animal or person lives, okay, when the animal in this case. All right, so many types of animals live in the coral reefs. Excuse me. Many types of animals live in the coral reefs in Key Largo. They swim and hide among 40 kinds of soft and hard corals. I saw colorful tropical fish, spiny lobsters, and sea urchins. Shrimps and crabs also live on coral reefs. Last year, our family took a trip to California. There, I had a chance to look at kelp forests up close. Both kelp forests and coral reefs are underwater habitats. Kelp is long brown algae that lives in cool, shallow waters. Similar to coral polyps, kelp needs sunlight and a hard surface in order to grow. Kelp has 3 parts: the holdfast, the stipe, and the blade. The holdfast is the part that attaches to the ocean floor. The stipe connects the holdfast to the blade, and the blade is the leafy part that takes in sunlight and converts it to food. Kelp forests form when kelp grows closely in crowded groups. Like coral reefs, kelp forests provide homes for many kinds of sea life, including fish, jellyfish, sea urchins, and otters. These animals can hide in the long, swaying kelp. Kelp can grow 2 feet a day. At Monterey Bay Aquarium, I saw kelp that grew 28 feet high, but some giant kelp reaches a height of 200 feet. I like going to places where I can learn while having fun. All right, so that's all coming from his perspective because this is his journal, this Daryl Otis. He wrote this journal. So let me pause here for just a minute. Okay, this next passage that we're going to read is an editorial, which is a little bit different than a journal. Words to know. As you read, look inside, around, and beyond these words to figure out what they mean. Benefit, fragile, substances. Okay, an editorial is going to be a little different than a journal. An editorial is something that is actually published, say in a newspaper or a magazine. So a journal entry is just his own personal journal, okay? So this is an editorial that will be published. All right, this is by Mary Wilford. It's called Keep Coral Reefs Healthy. Okay, coral reefs are extremely important. Known as the rainforests of the sea, they provide homes to millions of different plants and animals. Coral reefs support roughly 25% of all the ocean's creatures. Furthermore, they benefit the economy by encouraging tourism and the fishing industry. Also, they provide ingredients to make new medicines. We must try to protect our fragile coral reefs. Coral reefs are made of small animals called coral polyps. Coral polyps are sensitive. They often react to changes in their environment. For example, one change that causes harm to coral reefs is a rise in the water temperature. Usually, corals live in water that is 70 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. If the temperature rises by only 1 or 2 degrees, coral reefs become stressed. As a result, they will expel or push out the tiny plants called algae that live inside their bodies. However, coral polyps need these algae to survive. The algae provide oxygen and food. Without algae, coral polyps cannot get enough food. Therefore, they may starve and die. If algae are expelled, coral polyps change color. They turn chalky white because their brilliant colors came from the algae in their tissues. This process is known as chloral bleaching. Bleached coral reefs can sometimes recover. However, a large number of coral polyps may die as a result of bleaching. One of the worst examples of coral bleaching happened in 1998. About 16% of the coral reefs around the world were damaged or died. Another threat to coral reefs is pollution. Acid rain, oil spills, and chemical fertilizers cause water pollution. These substances poison coral polyps and other animals that live in coral reefs. Coral polyps can only grow in very clear, clean water with plenty of sunlight. The algae that live in coral polyps use sunlight to make food, but water pollution makes the water cloudy. There is less sunlight, so algae cannot make food for the coral polyps. We can help preserve and protect our precious coral reefs. First, we need to reduce air and water pollution. One way to do this is walk or ride a bike instead of using a car. Another way is to stop littering and dumping harmful chemicals into the ocean. You don't have to live near the ocean to help the coral reefs. Let's start today. All right, The pictures here are just black and white, but if you were to go to the internet and look up coral reefs, you would see beautiful, bright colors. So you might do that so you can really appreciate what a coral reef looks like. All right, so let's take a look at some questions. It says, use what you learned from reading the journal entry and the editorial to answer the following questions. This question has two parts. First, answer part A, then answer part B. All right, so let's take a look at this. It says, think. Use what you learned from reading the journal entry and the editorial to answer the following questions. The question has two parts. First, answer part A, then answer part B. All right, which statement best describes a major difference between the text structures of Florida Keys and Keep Coral Reefs Healthy? Okay, so remember, one is a journal entry and the other is an editorial. So they're looking for the biggest difference. All right, so A says Florida Keys, that first article, tells why it is more important to save the kelp than the coral reefs, while Keep Coral Reefs Healthy tells about events in the history of coral reefs. Well, I don't actually. Hold on, let me see if I can. Why won't it let me move? Oh, for goodness sake. All right. Okay. Well, all right, maybe it'll let me go back now. Florida Keys tells why it is more important to save the kelp. Well, I thought the kelp was talked about more in the second one. Let's take a look here. I don't remember them even talking about kelp in the first one. Oh, that did. Last year, our family took a trip to California. There, I had a chance to look at kelp forests up close. Both kelp forests and coral reefs are underwater habitats. Oh, sure they did. They talked a lot about it. Let's look here. Oh, maybe that was it. The first one talked about kelp. I had them mixed up. All right. So the question said, tells why it is more important to save the kelp than the coral reefs. Let's see. Similar to kelp needs, so kelp has three parts. Okay, kelp forests form when kelp grows crowded or grows closely in crowded groups. Like coral reefs, kelp forests provide homes for many kinds. Kelp grow 2 feet. I saw kelp. Okay, I don't see where it says that kelp is more important than coral reefs. Let's look at our other choices. Florida Keys explains the similarities and differences between coral reefs and kelp. Keep Coral Reefs Healthy tells about causes and effects of damage to coral reefs. Okay, so here, this is talking about the text structure. Okay, that's the text structure. So let's take a look up here at Florida Keys. All right, and so up here it does talk about the similarities and differences between kelp and coral reefs. So it tells all about coral reefs up here. And then it talks about the similarities and difference. So see, similar to coral polyps, do you see that? That's part of the text structure of compare and contrast. And then it tells about kelp. Okay, so do you see this? Like coral reefs? Okay, now they do, the contrast is kelp grow 2 feet a day, whereas I believe they set up here coral reefs only grow like an inch in a year. Oh, there it is. It may only grow 1 inch every year. So that's a compare and contrast, okay? So that's the structure there, and it sure looks like B, but we have to go on and check all of them. Okay, so let's look at this one. Keep coral reefs healthy tells about causes and effects of damage to coral reefs. And there was a lot they talked about in there, and why they are extremely important and how we benefit from them. And we must try to protect our fragile coral reefs. Okay, so this would be more cause and effect structure. Let's look at C. Florida Keys is a personal account of seeing life in the ocean, while Keep Coral Reefs Healthy compares the different types of damage that pollution does to the coral. Well, see, this is right. This part is a personal account, but what should be here is that the editorial is more of a professional writing that would be published. So they're not comparing the right things, the two things. If this said keeping coral reefs healthy was written to be published, then this one would be right. But they're talking about two different things here. Florida Keys presents inspiring reasons for learning more about ocean life, while Keep Coral Reefs Healthy presents inspiring reasons for saving the reefs. Okay, I think actually it was the other way around. This is, let's see. Okay, hold on, let me look. Another. Okay. All right, so that keep inspiring reasons. Okay, so here's the thing with this one. This isn't talking about this one. They're asking a difference in the text structure. Oh, well, that won't work, will it? Okay, this is not a difference in the text structure. This is the same. One is inspiring you to learn more about ocean life, and one's inspiring you to save the reefs. They're talking about a difference in text structure. Okay, so I believe that that would be more with B, because Florida Keys is written, Florida Keys has the text structure of compare and contrast. Okay, remember that text structure? And compare, contrast. And then that's a different text structure. So we've got to be really careful, and we read the question very carefully. Because they're talking about describing a major difference between the text structures. Okay, so Florida Keys text structure is comparing and contrasting. Keep Coral Reefs Healthy text structure is cause and effect. Okay, so it's not that anything else that's written here is bad or wrong, because it isn't, but it just, they don't answer the question of the difference between text structures. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right, let me move this down if it lets me. Wait, is this not? Okay, so part B says choose one sentence from each passage that supports the answer in part A. Okay, so we need to pick, let's see. Okay, guys, I just realized I was not recording, so I don't know what you missed and what you got. So I think we're on part B. I think it got all of A. All right, it says choose one sentence from each passage that supports the answer in part A. So remember, part A talked about Florida Keys being compare and contrast, and Keep Coral Reefs Healthy was cause and effect. So we need to pick one, A, B, or C, that supports the compare and contrast for Florida Keys, and D, E, or F that supports the cause and effect in Keep Coral Reefs Healthy. All right, so let's look at Florida Keys first. All right, A, our guide told us that the reef is made of coral polyps. I don't see any compare and contrast there, but let's keep going and look. The algae use the sun's energy to produce food, and see, similar to coral polyps, kelp needs sunlight and a hard surface in order to grow. Okay, so do you see here? These two are just statements. We're looking for compare and contrast, where they're comparing something or contrasting something. So similar, the word similar tells you that this is going to be the same. Similar to coral reefs, kelp, so both of them need sunlight and a hard surface in order to grow. So that's where they are comparing. They're not contrasting here. They're comparing how they're the same. Okay? So C would be the answer for the first one, comparing and contrasting. Okay? So let's look at D, E, or F for Keep Coral Reefs Healthy. I'm going to ask you to try this one, but I'll read them to you. So, coral reefs are extremely important. E, for example, one change that can cause harm to coral reefs is a rise in the water temperature. Well, there's a little hint for you. If this is cause and effect, they gave you a real hint, but that's what you want to do is look for those key words and clue words. And then F's, let's start today. So you see, every single one of these statements was in those passages, but you have to be sure to answer the question. The question is which one shows cause and effect, and they gave you a huge hint here, what you want to look for. For example, one change that causes harm to coral reefs is a rise in water temperature. So that would be the sentence that supports cause and effect. I hope that helps. All right, let's, I think, no, we got one more page. Hold on. Why is this? All right, let's look at number 2. It says the box below gives details about how the journal entry by Daryl Otis and the editorial by Mary Wilford present information. Right, all right, these are the details, and then write details from the list to complete the chart below. Use each detail only once. Okay, it's another one of these where we have 6 boxes, and each one of those is going to be used once in each one of these will be used once in each of these boxes. All right, so explains how coral grow. Okay, well, let's see, what do you think? Did they talk about how they grow here? Yeah, they talk all about coral polyps can only grow in a very clean, clear water. So they talk about it here, how they grow. Let's look up here and see if we can find okay, a coral reef grows slowly upward from the ocean floor. So it looks like that's in both of them. Okay, so I'm going to just put, what I'll do is I'll just go 1, 2, 3, 4, whoops, 5, and 6. So we said that explains how coral grows. That's in both. So I'm going to put 1 here, but what they want you to do is actually write out. Well, I'll do 1 for you. Okay, so you need to actually write this out in here, and your spelling should be fine because you're just copying. Explains, and I know you'll do a neater job than me. I'm using a marker, and it's really hard to write. Explains how coral oh boy, grows. Okay, so that would go in there. So I'm just going to put numbers for the rest, but I would expect you to write it out. Okay, so one goes in there. All right, explains why it is important to take care of ocean life. All right, so let's go back up, and I have to get rid of this. So, I would like you to write these entries in here. I'm going to put the numbers, but I would like you, oh goodness sake, put them up there, okay? So for the journal entry, we had number 3 and number 6. Now I want you to write the actual entries in, not just the numbers. I just did that to help you. Okay, 2 and 4, and then 1 and 5, all right? All right, so go ahead and number those down like you had them, and then you know where to write those entries in. All right, and let's move on then to the last one. I have to get rid of this to do that. Oh my goodness, I'm particular right now.